Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to be going over the International Space Station, and otherwise it's known as the ISS. So that's basically what we're going to be going over in this video. So before we start, let's first cover what we're going to be going over in today's video. So the topics that we're going to be covering is, what is the ISS? We're going to be covering where is the ISS located. Third, we're going to be going over the speed of the ISS. Fourth, we're going to be going over the size of the ISS. Fifth, we're going to be going over who built the ISS. And finally, sixth, we're going to be going over the rockets used to launch the ISS. So these are just going to be the topics that we're going to be going over throughout the whole entire video. So let's get started with what the ISS is. So what is the International Space Station? So basically, the International Space Station is the largest modular space station currently inside of the low Earth orbit. So if you don't know what a low Earth orbit is, we already created a whole entire video on that in our previous video. So feel free to watch that video out. It'll also be linked in the description below. So basically, the International Space Station is a modular, which is the largest one built in space, and it's currently just flying inside of the low Earth orbit. So now let's cover where is the International Space Station located. So we already know that it's inside of the low Earth orbit. So the low Earth orbit is located from 200 to 800 kilometers above Earth. So that's where the low Earth orbit is. And basically the International Space Station is located at 408 kilometers above Earth. So the low Earth orbit can be ranged from 200 to 800 kilometers, and the International Space Station is just half of that at 408 kilometers above Earth. So that's basically where the International Space Station is located. So now let's cover what is the speed of the International Space Station. Since it's inside of our low Earth orbit, it has to maintain a certain amount of speed for it to stay in there. And the speed that the ISS has to maintain is 7.66 kilometers per second. So as soon as it goes 7.66 kilometers per second, then it can remain in that low Earth orbit, and that's basically how fast it goes. And it usually takes about 90 to 93 minutes for each orbit around Earth. So that's basically what the speed of the International Space Station is. So now let's cover what is the size of the International Space Station. So the ISS is the size of an American football field, and we'll put a picture of that up on the screen right now. So basically that's how big the ISS is. And now let's cover who built the International Space Station. So the ISS involves the contributions of 16 nations and is the largest and most complex scientific project ever undertaken. So as we see here, it's the ISS involves the contributions of 60 nations. So that's basically just a little bit of knowledge of who built it. And the major contributors to the ISS are Europe, the United States, Russia, Canada, and Japan. So that's basically who built the International Space Station. And now let's cover over the history of the ISS. So in 1998, the very first module was placed in orbit. The ISS core construction was completed in 2011, and on November 2nd, 2000, the first human went on ISS. So this gives a little bit of a timeline about the ISS. So way back in 1998, actually it wasn't that long ago, and back in 1998, the very first model was starting to orbit the Earth, and it was inside of the orbit. And then the core construction was completed in 2011, so basically everything was completed, it was functionable. And then on November 2nd, 2000, that was the first time actual human went to the ISS. So that's a little bit about the history of the International Space Station. To cover more about the history of the International Space Station, I'm going to put a picture up right now for showing how the International Space Station looked like when it was first inside of the orbit back in 1998. So this is how the picture looks like. You can see that there was only it was one straight line there, one module, and then there was a few solar panels trying to get the energy there, so it was really small back then. And now let's compare it to a picture of how the International Space Station looks like right now. So I'm going to be putting an image of the ISS right now, and you can see how the difference is from way back in 1998 to currently. So that's how the picture of our ISS looks like right now. So now we're going to be going over a video clip that compares both of the International Space Stations, one from 1998 and one from now. I'm feeling basically the history of the International Space Station. So now let's cover the rockets used to launch the ISS. So you might be wondering, how did all the parts of the ISS get to space? And the major ways were by 3 rockets that were used. And the rockets that were used were the space shuttle. So right now the space shuttle is not being used anymore, but that was one of the rockets that were used and helped to launch some of the modules of the ISS. And the second one we have, which was the Proton rocket. So this one also helped to launch some of the modules of the ISS. And third, we have the Soyuz rocket as well. So these were like the 3 main rockets used to launch most of the parts of the ISS into space, and then from there it would become easier to build. So these are just the rockets that were used to help build the ISS. So that's basically it for everything we're going to cover today. So in our part 2 video of the International Space Station, we're going to be covering all the modules and parts of the ISS, and we're also going to be covering what the astronauts do inside of the ISS as well. So this was just like a part 1 video to explaining a little bit of the general information about the ISS, and that's basically it for this video. And feel free to comment anything down in the comment section below, and I'll try my best to respond to them as quick as I can. So thank you so much for watching from Try to Be Useful, and we'll see you guys in our next video.